If there is one skill that I'm hearing we could all get better at, especially with the pandemic, is how we handle ambiguity and change. Hi, you are listening to Dear Workplace by InnovatorsBox, where we untangle changes, trends, and challenges at work. I'm your host, Monica Kang, and today I'm excited to explore why ambiguity at work feels hard and how we can get better at dealing with it. Like our relationship with authenticity, which we explored in our last episode, our relationship with ambiguity has been at odds. From the moment we enter the world, we are praised for knowing the right answers and fast. Correct answers in school, having certainty about what you want in your career, being certain about how to negotiate that contract. Yeah, it's understandable why we got so much training in life to be certain and why we feel less familiar with ambiguity, change, and uncertainty. But it doesn't help that when things are ambiguous at work, the pressure, stress, and challenges could multiply. Sometimes things could get toxic at work.
Innovation and creativity is about freedom. It's also about ambiguity. People, including myself, have a hard time dealing with ambiguity. Why? Because our lives are so structured. We have routines. We have people, loved ones, families, family members, and others in our lives that give us structure. What happens when all your structures fall apart or move away, or you no longer have those kind of structures?
Well, I'm a big proponent of the soft skills area, which I think is really silly that we call them soft skills, because it's things that are very hard, like embracing ambiguity, dealing with different types of people, inspiring followership, I don't know, you name it, coaching people, dealing with conflict. Like none of these things are easy, and yet we call them soft skills.
You know, and then there's also commonalities where people kind of want to, like I said, want to pitch into that common pot, are comfortable with the idea of a bit of ambiguity, but things manifest by doing them. I'm a fan of a phrase that in known systems, you kind of you know the outcome, but in chaotic systems, the best step is just to move and see how things react to it.
When someone asks me, what exactly do you do? Much like when I was a child, what exactly is your favorite subject? This exactness and people's curiosity about that exactness is something that really bothers me, like what exactly do? I wear so many hats, and although to a lot of people it might look like, oh, you do this and do that. How do you do so many things? For me, they're all a part of each other, it's like one thing is connected to another. And I think that as a child, as a teenager, and later on as a professional, I had always told people that the world is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous.
I resonate so much with these insights because growing up in both America and Asia, I was surrounded by structure and celebration for certainty. And the way I'd know it is because of how stressed out I felt when I was not certain what I wanted to do about certain things. When I realized I filled out the wrong paperwork to not get the visa to Shanghai in time to join my summer study abroad program, I felt both devastated and stupid for having missed that. When I realized my slide colors were not working well in the room lighting during my first keynote speaking event, I felt miserable. When I realized I wasn't sure why I was feeling depressed while working at a job I loved, I felt it was my fault for not being certain about what I was supposed to know. I'd give myself a hard time for not knowing, instead of wondering what I could do to make the most out of the new situation. Do you ever feel that way too? Alana Karen reminds me, yes. She is an award-winning tech leader, author, and speaker who hopes that more industries like tech embrace the importance of honing and practicing your core skills, like how you deal with ambiguity. The 20-year Google veteran has seen and done a lot, and she shares why looking back, learning how to navigate ambiguity will only be more important in the future of work.
In tech, we tend to heavily value technical skills. And I think that is something that a person can build. And there's obviously a ton now of online training and both full-time programs, part-time programs, classes, self-led apps. So many ways you can learn that nowadays. But it is interesting that I feel like that stuff is only so useful, especially when you're dealing with some of what we were just talking about. Like, how do you hire differently than you've been hiring? How do you train people? How do you help them return from uncertainty into a world that still has some uncertainty, but it's different uncertainty, right? Like, all of these types of things are about dealing with people and processes are human created. So how do we build skills there? Well, that's a lot of actually trial and error and working through it with people. And again, to what we were talking about, paying attention when you're in rooms. How are people interacting with each other? There are also trainings in this. You can find ones on negotiation, dealing with conflict, etc. A lot of those will teach you core tools that are helpful, but it'll help you think a little differently. It'll help you maybe teach something that'll help you work through it, but it's going to be practice that gets you that real skill. And so I think if we could just tilt the balance a little bit and realize that it's a lot of that stuff that we're going to need, and we're going to have to continue to keep growing after this, I think that will benefit so many things in even how in normal times we were operating with each other.
Practice, practice, practice. Ironically, our time during the pandemic gave us all a lot of that precious practice time. The key is how you continue to practice this skill even when everything feels certain and back to normal. We shouldn't need a crisis to hone our ambiguity skills. Furthermore, if we are open to exploring unknown paths, we have a higher chance of innovating and finding new paths for others. Andrew Ngui, the Director of Innovation and Startups in Greater Peoria Economic Development Council, shares why reframing your mindset is key. One suggestion he has is to never stop asking questions.
People, including myself, have a hard time dealing with ambiguity. Why? Because our lives are so structured. We have routines, we have people, loved ones, families, family members, and others in our lives that give us structure. What happens when all your structures fall apart or move away, or you no longer have those kind of structures? Do you have any sense of stability that will allow you to tackle, at least in one dimension, that ambiguity? And so now it becomes a bigger question of equity, right? Are we at the same starting line? Can somebody who is homeless have the same capability to engage in an ambiguous situation where you're trying to start a business? Most probably not, because there's so much instability in multiple parts of their personal lives that they have no capability or simply no mind space for that to happen. And I think, the creativity piece is also really important because, as kids, we play, we explore, we learn informally, of course. And now suddenly we discover that, hey, school has been teaching us to not be creative and to just learn by rote. For example, even in math for multiplication, there's only one way to multiply. Come on, there isn't. There are multiple ways. But just because it's not the right way or the way that the curriculum is supposed to teach, is it wrong? No. Right. So, and I guess the creativity piece also kind of parallels the curiosity piece. And so we've been also taught not to ask questions, right? How many times, if you think back to your childhood, how many times have your parents gotten upset with you because you keep asking why? I have not stopped asking why. And I don't think I would stop, because the moment you stop asking why, you're going to stop learning.
I appreciated Andrew's humility in first recognizing why it feels hard to face ambiguity. And second, reminding us that this is not a one-time said and done skill. It's a skill where the more we practice, the more uncertainties we can gracefully handle. And doing so, especially in the workplace, is key, because even outside of the pandemic, the stress we feel around ambiguity happens all the time. When your colleague becomes harder to get a hold of, when your manager gave you a task but no clear guidelines on how to get it done, and when a client project requires new solutions that have not been done before. Creative problem solving is needed at every single moment along the way, but those moments become more enjoyable if we take the time to reframe how we think about ambiguity. One place to start is with these 3 steps. I came across this ideal article, 3 Ways of Getting Comfortable with Ambiguity by Marta Harding, as I was researching for this episode. Ideal, the global design firm helping companies rethink innovation with design thinking, shares why we should embrace uncertainty, despite the discomfort associated with doing so. The 3 steps they suggest, though simple, are powerful, and I hope you'll give them a try. Number 1, plan to not know. What we don't know is less of a surprise if we plan to not know what we don't know. For example, not trying to know how my participants may react to my jokes prepares me for 3 scenarios instead of 1. A version where they resonate, one where they don't, and something else. 2. Shift from should to could. The language matters. Often, we feel that we have to show up a certain way, and that prevents us from exploring what we could do or what else is out there. 3. Change the context. If you are feeling stuck, find new input and change the context. This is why I step away from my screen for a brief break when I feel flustered or switch tasks if I feel stuck. We should also consider how complex and connected this world is. JP Gonzalez, one of the co-founders of Complexity Weekend, a weekend-long virtual hackathon that brings people to creatively solve global complex problems, shares why curiosity and play matters.
In my experience, people who are interested in complexity are, they're a bit of the outsider in their own groups. They come together and they kind of have these common touchstones that they can refer to. It's like, oh, I'm interested in so-and-so's work. I'm interested, kind of the foundational texts of complexity. It's like Mandelbrot and, Doane Farmer's work, Jim Crutchfield's work back in the day with chaos theory. I'm referring to chaos and fractals a lot right now because I guess that's in my head. But, and then there's also commonalities where people kind of want to pitch into that common pot, are comfortable with the idea of a bit of ambiguity, but things manifest by doing them. I'm a fan of a phrase that in known systems, you know the outcome, but in chaotic systems, the best step is just to move and see how things react to it. So people are comfortable with creativity and play in a big way, which oftentimes in the scientific world isn't encouraged as much. So failure is expected in a lot of complexity research versus this strict hypothesis testing and So I think that's what a lot of the complexity community has to offer. Is it offers a space for people to come together, put ideas out there, see what sticks, and see what just goes wow, that was interesting and creative.
Failure is expected in the research? Wow, that's kind of comforting to know that it's okay to fail along the way. JP's advice aligns very much to Andrew, Alana, and even to what the ideal article speaks of. Which is yes, while ambiguity is uncomfortable, if we look at the macro lens of how normal that process is, why not celebrate it? Just like how no one would be upset at a toddler for not knowing how to run before crawling. Part of getting uncomfortable with ambiguity is recognizing where our starting ground is and simply moving forward from there. How does a day without meetings make you feel? How would a weekend feel without any agenda? My friend Sudebi suggested that our own definition of what, where, and how we do what we do can often box or limit our thinking.
I feel like, we grew up in a way in which we either look at the world in form of binaries. So, and the binaries are basically dividers. They're never connectors, right? You don't know how to dwell in between the binaries. You do not have an affinity to be in the in-between spaces because those are the uncertain, ambiguous spaces and people don't like fuzziness, right? And what happens in that process is that you start believing in a very reductionist way of looking at life. So anything to do with money is bad. A lot of people believe in that as well, right? Whereas if you have to have money, then, like Prabal was talking about it, that profit and purpose cannot be blended. That's what people believe. I feel, at least to me, being authentic is the most important thing. If you are not authentic to what you want, there is nothing which really can be clarified.
Sudebi Thakurata, co-founder of Depicenter Consulting, speaks about a key insight. When we are true to ourselves, exploring ambiguity feels a bit easier because we know what our grounding truths are. This is how I feel about the changes during the pandemic and how I guide my workflows as an entrepreneur. While I have no control over how many clients come to us or when or what solutions they may ask for, knowing what we can do today permits us to be more at ease and focus on providing the highest quality of work we can. So instead of worrying about when my participants will fill out a survey, I can focus on how I can design the survey process such that participants share their input as much as possible. The key is, whether it's a global phenomena like the pandemic or specific workplace ambiguity we feel in the office, change and uncertainty is certainly always there. And we all have the choice and opportunity to hone how to get better at it by practicing and listening. This is why now, when I face moments of unexpected changes, I no longer feel frustrated or overwhelmed. Yes, learning to embrace uncertainty can be a bit of a bummer, but in hindsight, it's just that the initial possibilities you had in mind had to change. And that's okay. So what about you? How are you looking forward to looking at change and ambiguity because of today's episode? Thanks for joining us today. This is Monica Kang, your host at Dear Workplace. I hope you enjoyed today's show. Thanks to our guests for your insights. Next, I'm eager to dive into a question we get asked often. Are leaders born or made? Bring your questions and thoughts. I'll see you next time.
Oh hey, I'm Sarah No, a creative producer at InnovatorsBox, and I hope you're enjoying Dear Workplace. Ever since the world completely shifted, I've been living out the motto, your life is what you make it. Fun fact, I've been actively learning French through podcasts and Netflix shows. Mais oui. This show is brought together by our awesome team, producer Saren O, audio engineers Sam Lammert and Ravi Ladd, Kelly Gravo on marketing, website designer Akriti Pandy, graphic designer Monica Escobar, and Luke Helder on music. And of course, Dear Workplace is hosted and directed by Monica Kang, founder and CEO of InnovatorsBox. To continue the conversation of reimagining the workplace, visit us at innovatorsbox.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share. We'd love to hear what you enjoy, and I got you. Let me know what you want to hear next, and I'll convince Monica to talk about it in our next episodes. See you next week.